The last few days have marked another important milestone in Viking's journey. As we've been celebrating our 25th anniversary, we've also taken delivery of the newest ship in our fleet, our second expedition vessel, the Viking Polaris, which was named in a twin naming ceremony with her sister, the Viking Octantis, in Amsterdam last week. The Viking Polaris has been outfitted at the Vard shipyard in Sørvik in Norway, with the final finishing touches being completed by our dedicated team. And last week she set sail bound for Amsterdam to be welcomed into the Viking family during a very special naming ceremony. So for the first time in our history, all three categories of Viking vessels came together to mark the occasion. Our newest Viking longship, the Viking Mani, our newest ocean ship, the Viking Mars, and the Viking Polaris were all docked in the port of Amsterdam, representing the three different ways that our guests can explore the world. Pardon Charlie here. Our first expedition ship, the Viking Octantis, docked in the port of Toronto, as mentioned, was also officially named at the same time, with the two ships, the Viking Polaris and the Viking Octantis, linked by video for the occasion. We also actually streamed the event to all our ships in the fleet so that both guests and crew could enjoy the moment as well. It was a hugely proud moment, both for Viking and for the godmothers of our two expedition ships. The godmothers were the trailblazing polar explorers Liv Arnesen and Anne Bancroft. And in this short film, we'd like to introduce you to our new Viking expedition ships and share some insights from the experts who all helped make them the most innovative, comfortable and environmentally considerate ships of their kind. So we hope you enjoy.
Hello, I'm Richard Riveire with Rote Studio, and I have the great privilege to lead the design efforts for Viking. In previous videos, we've talked about our work with the longships for Europe's rivers, the Star-class ocean ships, and our ships for the Nile and the Mississippi. Today, though, I'm very excited to talk to you about the Viking Octantis and Viking Polaris, our new expedition-class ships. Yet for us, this was a very interesting commission. A ship built to explore some of the most remote and beautiful areas of the world. Now, other ships that have been used for polar voyages have tended to be a little rough in terms of creature comforts, but we saw this as an opportunity to create a new environment for our guests, one that's definitely suited to the challenges, but also truly a Viking ship and dedicated to exploring the world in comfort. We wanted to create a ship that was a true expedition experience, but one that lives up to the standards of our other ships. So as we started the process, I wanted everyone on the team to remember that this is a very rare opportunity that we're providing our guests, a chance for them to go where very few people are able to go. Ship needs to be a memorable and supportive part of that experience while respecting the reason for being there in the first place. Now, the scale of the ship might just surprise you a bit. There's only 378 guests, and it has a very sleek, compact profile. But the ship also has an extraordinary amount of public space and larger, more innovative cabins. Now, the ocean ships that we've done, the Star-class ships that we've done, this ship isn't terribly different in terms of scale, but only about half the number of guests. So that space is there to make sure that we're crafting exactly the right experience for our guests. For those of you that have seen me talk about the Viking design brand, you might remember that there are 5 basic concepts that we use on all of the ships in the fleet. The ideas of Nordic heritage, residential modernism, the idea of craft, nature, and of course, exploring the world in comfort. While all of our ships have influence from each of those ideas, every different class of ship has one that is more prominent than the others. For example, the Star-class ocean ships are more focused on our Nordic heritage and the exploration categories. The new expedition ships are more heavily influenced in the nature category. So you're going to see us use that with great effect as we've gone through all of the design work, starting with geography. We have a new Expedition Central space as your one-stop shop for all things expedition, from talking with your guides and setting boat times to learning about the topography of the area. For our Antarctic cruises, we often do not know the exact landing locations we're going to be given, so having a good understanding of the topography is critical. So Expedition Central is built around the idea of topography. Very, very large maps, 3D printed models, interactive monitors of every map imaginable, and a design that takes advantage of all that. Looking forward to sharing that with you. Also in the geography category, we have, after the Aula Theater, the Finse Terrace, an outdoor deck that pays homage to both Finse Plateau in Norway, which has been used for generations of explorers to train for harsh climates, and of course to our favorite Labrador, Corinna's Finse. A wonderful space for sitting with friends and admiring the scenery and just simply enjoying the outdoors. And don't worry, for cold weather climates, we have heated seats, lava rock fire pits, and of course Norwegian blankets, because we explore in comfort. A look at the wildlife you'll encounter is a huge part of our design as well. While the richness of wildlife in the Great Lakes region is fairly expected, the quantities and range of wildlife in the polar regions was a surprise to me. Marine life and birds are a huge part of the experience. Now, in one of those really glorious happy accidents that occasionally occur, while researching the Arctic tern, a bird which plays an important role in the Expedition Central space design, I came across this amazing artist, Susan Beal. She works creating lifelike birds working in needle-tufted felt, like this little guy here. These life-size and amazingly realistic birds are handcrafted out of felt. So for each reason the ship sails, we have 12 of the most common birds that our guests will see on display in Expedition Central. With our resident photographer, guests not only be able to identify the birds, but also try out various photography techniques to get their best results for their images. Hope you'll enjoy it. I found it fascinating. Whales, of course, are always inspiring. Their intelligence, gracefulness, and sheer size are absolutely unique. There are several references to these graceful creatures on board. The design for the doors to our Explorer's Lounge were developed from 19th century illustrations of scientific classifications of various whale species, and it is amazing to see the diversity of these wonderful creatures. In our living room, we came up with a clever way of grasping the true size of these animals using the work of the Smithsonian Institution's foremost expert in whales. I think it will both surprise and inspire you. We have some new takes on beloved themes as well. The cabins and suites, I'm very excited about. We've rethought the cabin from the basic plan all the way up, and we have this new concept of the Nordic balcony. Opens the cabin fully to the outside for an immersive experience. Using a very sophisticated sliding window system that extends the full width of the cabin, the sitting area of our staterooms literally becomes a part of the outdoors. I can well imagine spending a summer evening in my Nordic balcony on Lake Superior watching a spectacular sunset. I think you will really very much enjoy it. We have heard from our guests that the Longships and Ocean Ships cabins were very hotel-like, and I take great pride in that. But the new ship takes that to a new, quite extraordinary level. The overall look and feel of these cabins is right at the level of luxury. Now, the World Cafe has always been a great experience on our ocean ships, but here we've gone in a new direction that I call the World Marketplace, and a new experience that has multiple venues, open galleys, or kitchens for those of you who are not hotel-oriented, and a design that lets the guests pick the experience they want. Our Explorer's Lounge is updated as well. We've retained those things that have worked so well, including the beloved upper deck mezzanine level. But we've wrapped up the design a bit taking inspiration from the storied Explorers Club in New York, really to expand the experience and create, again, that immersive atmosphere that we're looking for. So we have a new, larger, more approachable bar, more fireplaces, and a very exciting relationship with the Scott Fuller Research Institute at Cambridge University that takes their museum artifacts into our environment. And of course, as always, Viking ships are designed for comfort, for learning, and for experiences, connecting our guests with some of the most extraordinary landscapes in the world. And we look forward to welcoming you on board.
The Viking Octantis, as an expedition vessel, has a hull that has been designed to go to the ice, and that's something that we defined and designed, doing also some tank testing and modeling of the vessel going to the ice. We spent a couple of weeks doing all of the testing in the tank model area. Also, the hull is what we call classified PC6, so it's Polar Class 6, which is the equivalent of sailing in 75 centimeter of ice thickness. Public spaces are really important for us, and during the construction we are checking and validating every steps of the constructions, from the ceiling to the wall, the floor, and all of the furniture that's going to happen. There's a dedicated process to make that happening and making sure that at the end of the day we've got the quality that we're looking for and all of the nice product that you're going to see very soon.
The job is mainly divided in two phases. The first technical phase with the control of the preparation of the deck, insulation and interference between the various systems. Once the technical phase is completed, we move on the second phase and focus on the installation of the furniture with the primary objective of obtaining the maximum comfort for the guests.
My job usually is to check the quality of the installation, looking about the detail that is in line with our standard and international rules. Now we are in the last part of the installation, where we just check the commissioning of all equipment and usually the rifinitura of all area, final delivery that we are still in. Important that the shipyard is in our standard and the target is to obtain the best that we can.
In order to improve the efficiency of the ships, the IMO, International Maritime Organizations, released a resolution in 2012 to promote the less polluting ships and develop some measure for that. That's what we call EEDI, which is the Energy Efficiency Design Index, which can be summarized as the impact to the environment, to the benefit to the society. When that formula is applied to Viking, we can say today that we are at least 36% better than the requirement. In addition to that, we also develop a bow that is really particular for Viking, but also improving the comfort and also helping for the fuel consumptions. The Viking Octantis has been designed to be ready for zero emissions. We concentrated also on the appendices, like the bow thrusters, like the fin stabilizer, and definitively the azipod. The azipod has been designed to offer enhanced maneuvering at port and when we are in the fjord or in Arctic and Antarctic. It's also helping us to reduce the fuel consumptions. And we can say that today, with the hull that we design and the pod that we install, we can reduce the fuel consumption by about 4%. Like for your car, the engines of the ship needs to be cooled down. We are using seawater and fresh water to cool down the engines, which generate heat. That heat is not lost. We are going to use that heat to create either steam or help for the hot water system on board the ship. Then we are also recovering the heat for the exhaust. And that heat is also used either for creating steams or hot waters.
When we sail in Antarctica with Viking expedition ships, we'll come into areas with very high density of marine wildlife. Whales, dolphins, seals. Because of this density, we have worked together with IATO, the Organization for Tourism in Antarctica, to advocate for a whale-safe speed. Within a geo-fenced area, we will lower our speed in order to minimize the risk of colliding with wildlife.
It is always a risk with all expedition ships sailing in remote areas when going in places where birds are nesting, that in foggy and dark conditions, birds can be attracted to the lights of the ship sailing by and therefore strike the ship accidentally. And to reduce this, we have worked with our partner, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, to design a bridge-controlled system that we call bird-safe lighting mode, which reduces the external light as much as we can to still be safe, and in order to reduce the chances of bird strikes.
The Viking expedition ships will also have something called a silent E notation within our classification society, meaning that we have a certificate saying exactly how much noise emission we have to the water. And when we go into whale-safe speeds in Antarctica, we can also guarantee that we emit a low noise signature to wildlife in the ocean. Combined with whale-safe speeds, a very good thing to minimize the impact on marine wildlife.
Biosecurity is of critical importance when designing any expedition operation. Our ships, by their nature, are travelling from place to place, from areas of habitation through to some of the most vulnerable places on Earth. There is always a risk that you have unwanted, non-native biota and pathogens transferring as a result.
When we come to Antarctica, before we do our first landing, we'll go through a sequence of cleansing of velcros on the people's gear. We will vacuum clean people's backpacks that are used in other areas of the world. We will sanitize the boots and make sure that we minimize the risk of bringing foreign biomatter, diseases and viruses into the Antarctic food web.
Dynamic positioning is an automated mode on the ships that enables the vessels to stay very precisely in position without lowering anchors. And this enables us to run off-ship activities while not impinging on delicate benthic areas, so the seabed underneath if it's vulnerable.
Viking is the first ship with a special food waste and biomass treatment system which hydrocarbonizes the food waste without burning it, without letting any emissions out, and making it into a product that can be used in other industries as a biofertilizer, for example. So it's a zero-emission incineration system.
On each ship, one of our 2 special operation boats has been designated a survey vessel. This means specifically it has been installed with a Kongsberg state-of-the-art multi-beam sonar system. This enables us to scan the seabed to do bathymetric surveys, to look at glacial geomorphology and related research, as well as understanding the places that we go to visit in remote locations better. In partnership with NOAA, specifically the US National Weather Service, we have been invited to set up our ships as weather balloon stations. So we're adding to the network of the stations that NOAA run around the world, with a concentration around the North American continent, for sending balloons into the upper atmosphere with a small electronics data package that regularly monitor the atmosphere as they ascend up to 25,000 meters, that's 16 miles up into the air. And these will be the first civilian ships that have the weather stations on it in behalf of the National Weather Service. Our ships have been set up with a sophisticated suite of oceanographic instrumentation. This is proprietarily known as a ferry box system. And this is an automatic process of gathering water, going through sensors, and then we have a 400 square foot wet lab on board as well, where our onboard researchers and visiting scientists can calibrate and ground truth the information gathered automatically. Now, this data collectively can be shared with our partners around the world to have a better understanding of the seas around us.
Our two expedition ships are named for important stars in celestial navigation. The Viking Octantis for the southern star Sigma Octantis, and the Viking Polaris after the North Star Polaris. Their godmothers were chosen for their achievements in the polar regions of those same hemispheres. Liv Arnesen, godmother to the Viking Octantis, was the first woman to ski solo to the South Pole. Anne Bancroft, godmother to the Viking Polaris, was the first woman to the North Pole by sled and foot. And together in 2001, Liv and Anne became the first women in history to ski across Antarctica. Two true explorers, venturing to parts of the world few are ever privileged to see. We are so very honored to have Liv and Anne as part of the Viking family as our Viking expedition ship's godmothers.
Well, being named a godmother for Viking is a little heady experience. It's a tremendous honor, I have to say.
Getting to know Karin and Torstein and the Viking family, I think it's fantastic.
It's everyone that we've met within Viking and their sense of pride, which, is just exuded. It's contagious.
It feels as that it's an honor to be included in that family.
The corporate culture, the careful attention to detail, just as they articulate, particularly the two ships that we're godmothers for, is really heartening for us, because it matters.
Those fantastic expedition ships, they can help many people to understand nature, become environmentalists. That's what I have experienced. I've been guiding 30 years on Svalbard in the Norwegian Arctic. And when you come close to nature, that makes something for all people.